أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، والعاقبة للمتقين ولا عدوان إلا على الظالمين، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم عبد الله ورسوله. أما بعد. We thank the Almighty Allah for giving us an opportunity to be here. We thank Him for His mercies that He's bestowed upon us. We bear witness that there is no deity worthy of worship except the Almighty Allah. We also bear witness that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is His servant and His messenger. Whosoever the Almighty Allah guides is really guided, and anybody who goes astray has nobody to blame but themselves. Alhamdulillah. Today is a Sunday, the 5th day of Muharram, 1445 years after the hijrah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which corresponds with the 23rd day of July 2023. Normally we have a Seerah class today, and our last episode spoke about the Islam of Umar, and we wanted to look at who Umar is. But then looking at the time that we are in now, we decided to have a different topic altogether. We're in the month of Muharram, and Muharram is one of the 4 sacred months as Muslims that we have. And the verse in Surah At-Tawbah where the Almighty Allah says, إِنَّ عِدَّةَ الشُّهُورِ عِنْدَ اللَّهِ 12 شهرا في كتاب الله يوم خلق السماوات والأرض منها 4 حرم. That there are 12 months with the Almighty Allah, and amongst these 12 there are 4 which are sacred. And the hadith of Abi Barzat al-Aslami found in Sahih Muslim, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam enumerated to us these 4. He said, Dhul Qa'da, Dhul Hijjah, wa Muharram, wa Rajab Mudhar. So Rajab, Dhul Qa'da, Dhul Hijjah, and Muharram. So these 4 months. But then, how did we come about making Muharram the first month of the year? Is something that we've discussed in this class a couple of times, but there's no harm in repeating it so that brothers can still remember it. In the 17th year of Hijrah, during the time of Umar ibn Khattab, his governor to Syria by name of Abu Musa al-Ash'ari, who is also a companion of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wrote to him a letter saying that I have 3 different letters from you which all have Ramadan on it, but I'm not able to differentiate which one of them comes before the other. So help us solve the problem. In another narration, it states that 2 people came to Umar with a problem. One of them had borrowed money from the other, and then it was time for him to pay, but then he was giving excuses that, no, we agreed for me to pay in Ramadan, but it is not this Ramadan, it is next Ramadan. And the owner of the money is saying, no, it is this Ramadan. But because they didn't have a dating system, they were not able to, solve some of these problems. So Umar ibn Khattab gathered the Sahaba radiallahu anhum to look into this matter. Eventually, they all agreed to use the Hijrah as a starting point for the Islamic calendar. And then the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it is known that he migrated in Rabiul Awwal. So why didn't they make Rabiul Awwal the first month of the year instead of but then they made Muharram the first month of the year? And the answer to that is that they decided to make Hajj the last activity of the year, so that when the Muslims go back to their countries, the following month becomes what? The first month of the year. That's how we have Muharram as the first month of the year. So we are in the new Islamic year, 1445 Hijri, and then today is the 5th day of Muharram. Now,
were the months already in place, the names of the months?
Yes, the names were already in place. The Arabs were using Safar, Muharram, Rabiul Awwal, but then the Arabs had a system of, the Arabs in Jahiliyyah also had sacred months, but then they twisted and turned them anyhow they wanted. So sometimes they will make Muharram a sacred month, another year they will change it to make Rabiul Awwal a sacred month. So the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in that hadith, he said, Inna zamana kadistadara ka hayatihi yawma khalaqa as-samawati wal ard, that the time has turned around back to its original positioning that the Almighty Allah wants it, which is what? Hajj is now done in Dhul Hijjah. So they already had the months, but then they only had a problem with system of dating. So if you remember in the Sirah, we only have year of the elephant, year of grief, because they use occasions and circumstances as a reference point for dating, but they didn't have a definite system like the Persians had, or the Romans had, or even the Chinese had. They didn't have that. It was during the time of Umar ibn Khattab that it was stipulated into stone that we're going to use the Hijrah as a reference point for the calendar of the Muslims. Let's take this one last question, and then after the class, we'll take the rest of the questions. But you ask your question, no worry.
We have several kind of months. We have the Jewish month, calendar, Chinese,
Now,
Persian, and so on.
now,
And only Islam go with the moon.
now,
With the moon.
now.
Why Islam go with the moon and all these other months don't go with the moon? And the moon is just a significant something. It changes with time.
The question is, why is it that the Islamic calendar is based on, the society of the moon, but most major, calendars in the world, go by the sun? I don't know. It's how Allah wanted it. He wanted us to use the moon as, the source of calculation. And let's realize that the moon scientifically is related with the month. And the moon has a 28-day cycle, fine, scientifically. But then the moon, in its traveling from one point to the other point, might delay for 1 day or 2 days. If it delays on the way for 1 day, the month becomes 29 days. If it delays for 2 days, it becomes 30 days. That is why the Prophet Muhammad said the month is either 29 or 30 days. It is wahi from the Almighty Allah. Because at that time, in the 7th century in the desert, they couldn't calculate that. They didn't have the machines. They didn't have the technical know-how to be able to know that the moon had 28, stop points. If you check the moon, you just from now, just observe the moon and see how it grows and then it wanes. It's within a 28-day cycle. And that's why our Islamic month is pegged at 29 or 30 days, because the moon definitely is going to be late 1 or 2 days. That is why on the 29th, we go seeking for the moon. If we see it, the month becomes what? 29 days. If we don't see it, the month becomes 30 days. And this has been scientifically proven. So our system of calendar, our calendar is an exact one. To give you another reference, I think in the 15th century, the Christian world had to add 14 days to their calendar to make it match scientifically. So it was in February 2nd, the next day was February 15th on the calendar. You can Google that, because using the sun as a source of calculation for your days is always problematic scientifically, and the scientists know that. And Allah A'lam, may Almighty Allah save that as. So in this month of Muharram, we have a particular day called Yawm AASHURA, which is the 10th of Muharram. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam urged us to fast on this day of Ashura. And technically, it is going to fall on Friday, next Friday. But then don't forget also there's a hadith of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam that prohibited us from fasting on a Friday alone. Now? Yes. So you fast on Thursday, which is the 9th, and then you fast on Friday, which is the 10th. So the hadi, or the guidance of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam concerning fasting on the Friday is that you fast a day before it or a day after it. So this day of Ashura, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he came to Medina, he used to fast the Ashura before he even went to Medina. But then when he went to Medina, he realized that the Jews in Medina were also fasting on that day. So he asked them, why are you fasting this day? And they said, this is the day the Almighty Allah gave victory for Musa alayhi salatu salam over Fir'aun. So we are fasting this day thanking the Almighty Allah. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam told them, we are closer to Musa than you. After some time, the Sahaba, Ya Rasulullah, you've been telling us to always, differentiate ourselves and always distance ourselves from the Yahud. But here's the case, they are fasting on a day, you're also fasting on a day. And then he said, when the Almighty Allah grants me long life, inshallah, next year I'm going to fast on the 9th and on the 10th, so as I differentiate myself from the Jews. But the Almighty Allah didn't give him that long life, and then he passed away before that. So it became a sunnah for us to fast on the 9th and on the 10th. So you either fast on the 9th or on the 10th, or you fast on the 10th and the 11th. That's what, majority of our scholars have agreed upon to be the best way of fasting, the day of AASHURA. But then again, there is a historical, occurrence on this day that has brought serious dilemma and division for the Muslim Ummah, which is on this day, on the day of AASHURA, was the day that Hussein, the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, was martyred. He was assassinated. So if you observe social media now, or even before then, you realize that some part of the Muslim world, you find some people, beating themselves, cutting themselves, weeping and wailing and crying. And you will see them hold black flags. And then on those flags, you see they have written, Ya Hussein, Ya Ali, Wa Husseina, and all that. What's the history behind that? And why is that happening? Or why is that being done? I decided for us to discuss this in class. It's also part of the seerah, but because it's the occasion, we are in the month, and then you'll be seeing that on social media or even on, traditional media. And the other part of it is that it's mostly found in places of Iraq and Iran. And the Shia are the ones who predominantly, do that. Or they are the ones who do that, not predominantly. They are the ones who actually do that. And a lot of stuff has been written around the assassination of Hussein radiallahu anhu. And a lot of mistruths have been peddled, and a lot of Sahaba have been falsely accused for some things. And this is a major headache for us as Muslims, because the enemies of Islam will always want to find excuses to pounce upon us and then create problems. So for us to really understand the martyrdom of Hussein, it happened in the 61st year of Hijrah, exactly 51 years after the passing away of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam predicted these events. But before we go to 61 Hijrah, I want us to go back maybe 30 or 40 years before that, or maybe even 50 years before that, and look at some historical events that will build up for us, the whole picture. We all know Abu Bakr Siddiq died on his deathbed. And then before he died, he appointed Umar as the Khalifa. And on the sickbed, he called Uthman and said, Uthman, come, let me write for you my final will and testament. He said, what is it? He said, I, Abu Bakr Siddiq, my last action in this dunya, also my first action in the akhirah, is that I have appointed Umar ibn Khattab as a Khalifa after I am dead. So the Muslim community listened to Umar and obey him. And then Uthman left with the paper. He had written it, Abu Bakr had signed it, and that was it. So later, Abu Bakr was asked, why did you make Umar ibn Khattab the Khalifa after you? He said, because I know he is better placed than all of you to be the leader. And if the Almighty Allah asked me, I will say it is out of my own understanding of the situation and Umar's position and his character, not because I have any knowledge of the unseen. Later, Umar ibn Khattab, he didn't even consult Umar. When Umar heard of it, he came to Abu Bakr. Why did you make me the Khalifa? I don't want it. He said, because I know you don't want it. That is why I gave it to you. And the Almighty Allah has placed it upon your neck, so you need to accept it. Abu Bakr dies. He is buried next to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If you go to Medina, his grave is next to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Umar ibn Khattab, strong man, very, very energetic. It was during his time that these two empires, the Roman Empire and the Persian Empire, was crushed. He crushed them. Within 10 years of Umar's tenure, he was able to almost make all the Arabian Peninsula to be Muslims. The empire or the Muslim nation had expanded, and people from different walks of life have entered into the empire, some of them as Muslims, some of them as non-Muslims. At the Battle of Qadisiyah, when the Muslim empire crushed the Persian empire, and part of our loss is that, or even that time, when you are defeated in war and you are captured as a slave, whoever you are. So some of them, the Persians, did not accept Islam. And this is also a proof that Islam was not forced upon people and does not spread by the sword. It is only the soldiers who are captured. But the rest of the citizens who didn't come to war, they are given options. Either you become a Muslim, or you remain on your deen and then you pay taxes to the Muslim nation as a source of what? Protection for you. So these guys, they didn't accept Islam, and one of them was called Abu Lu'lu al-Majusi. He was made a servant boy to Mughira ibn Shu'bah, and Mughira ibn Shu'bah was also one of the companions of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So Abu Lu'lu came to Umar ibn Khattab with a complaint. And this is also one of the justices of Islam, that someone who is a servant boy or non-Muslim could go to the Khalifa to complain of some of the things that his master does to him. So he came and said, Amir al-Mu'minin, I have a complaint. He said, what is it? He said, my master Mughira ibn Shu'bah is really overworking me. And Umar asked him, what do you do for him? He said, I do this and I do that and I do that and I do that. He said, okay, no problem. I'll speak to you and then we see how best he can make things easier for you. He was not satisfied with Umar's answer. He expected Umar to go just guns blazing and then, bashing, his master. Umar later called Mughira and then he told him, this is what your boy has come here to say, and at least find some ways to make things easier for him. So, okay, no problem. This young man went and then he created a knife with 2 points. And then he spent 1 month smearing poison on the 2 tips of the mouth, of the knife. So one morning, Fajr, it's not like now that we have electricity, there's light all around, we could see everybody. Even sometimes with all these lights, our minds are not able to capture people, as how it happened in New Jersey some months ago, that an imam was stabbed in Salah. So this guy joined the Saf. Umar, Allahu Akbar, Umar was leading the Salah. He went for the first rakah, he came for the second rakah when everybody was in concentration, clean. He went forward and then he stabbed Umar 4 different places. And then when he stabs him, he twists the knife. So he stabbed Umar 4 different places, 2 points, making 8 different places. So all the Sahaba could hear was Umar is crying out, he's killing me, he's killing me. And then they turned. Anybody who tried to get a hold of this guy, he would stab him. He ended up stabbing 9 different people. And then they found a big cloak and then they threw it upon him to pounce on him, and then he stabbed himself and then he killed himself. Umar ibn Khattab, before he fell, he grabbed Abdurrahman ibn Auf and then he put him in the leadership for him to continue the salah. Umar, passed out, and then after he came back to his senses, he regained consciousness. Who has caused my death on the hands of a man who had never prostrated to the Almighty Allah, which might be a source of, argument against me on the day of Qiyamah that he is a Muslim. Alhamdulillah. They realized, no, this is a fatal, accident to Umar. He's not going to survive. So some of them said, Ya Amir al-Mu'mineen, why don't you make your son, Abdullah ibn Umar, the Khalifa? Same way Abu Bakr appointed you, why don't you appoint my son? He said, no, this leadership or this position is okay. If there's any good in it for my family, I have enjoyed it. And if there's any evil in it, I have taken it upon my family. No member of my family is going to take this seat again. And it is not a family business. So he appointed 6 people who were also 6 people that the Prophet Muhammad had already told them they are going to enter Jannah. So these 6 people, Uthman, Ali, Abdurrahman ibn Auf, Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas, 6 of them, he told them, you guys sit and then discuss amongst yourselves, who do you think amongst yourselves deserves to be the next leader of the Muslim community? But then I want you to make my son Abdullah ibn Umar an observer in your deliberation so that it will serve as a learning curve and a course for him to learn. So Umar dies, and before he dies, he tells his son Abdullah, go to Aisha and then please tell her, Umar ibn Khattab, don't tell her Amir al-Mu'mineen, tell her Umar ibn Khattab is requesting to be buried near his two companions, meaning he wants to be buried near the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr Siddiq. Mind you, the place where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is buried in Abu Bakr is the room of Aisha, because that is where the Prophet died. And prophets are buried where they die. So the Prophet was buried there, and then Abu Bakr was buried there, and then Umar requested to be buried next to them. So he told Abdullah, go and tell Ummul Mu'mineen Aisha that Umar, don't tell her Amir al-Mu'mineen, tell her Umar. When the boy went, she agreed, no problem. She said, I had wanted to be buried next to my father and my husband, but since Umar wants it, no problem. I'm going to give up, my wants for what Umar wants. When the boy came back, he told his father, this is what Aisha has said. He said, okay, no problem. When I die, ask her again. Maybe, she has respect for me when I was alive, but maybe after I'm dead, she might change her mind. After his death, she was asked, he said, no, I had already given that permission. So Umar was buried next to Abu Bakr. So the Prophet, and then Abu Bakr, and then Umar. If you go to the Masjid Nabawi, it is there. You do salam to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Then you go to your right, you do salam to Abu Bakr Siddiq, and then you go, and then you do Umar, and then you walk out of the place. It is stated that Aisha radiallahu anha said, before Umar was buried in that room, anytime I go into the room to visit the grave of my father and my husband, I am not concerned with, full hijab, because it is my father and my husband who are there. But then when Umar was buried there, when I go in there, I go with full hijab. This is the consciousness of the Muslim woman on her hijab. May Almighty Allah safeguard us. So, Uthman, the 6 people agreed upon Uthman, and Uthman became the Khalifa. Uthman spent almost 12 years and some months as the Khalifa. But then Uthman's personality is not the personality of Umar ibn Khattab. Uthman is a relaxed person. Uthman is, is a soft person. He's not that, hard, vociferous, vocal, strong person like Umar. So there was a little bit, flexibility in the leadership of the community, and there was a lot of people who were indisciplined. So what happened? There is this man by name Abdullah ibn Saba. Abdullah ibn Saba created this notion that every prophet has a direct successor, and the direct successor of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is Ali. Because Musa's direct successor is what? Is Harun. So long as Musa's direct successor is Harun, and Harun is a brother to Musa, and Ali is also a brother to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, Ali should be the leader. And that Uthman is not the legitimate leader of the community, so he must be ousted. Either he abdicates or they kill him. So they formed an army of 6,000 people, and then they timed it perfectly to meet the time of Hajj, when majority of the men in Medina had gone to Mecca for Hajj. So the city was empty. It was only left with women and kids and some few men. They came and then they camped outside Medina, and Umar and Uthman asked someone to go and investigate what's going on. And then he infiltrated their ranks, and then he was able to get information that these people had come for only 2 things. One, either Uthman leaves the throne or they kill him. That's it. No other question about it. There is Muawiyah ibn Abi Sufyan, who was also a governor in Syria at that time, who happens to be a cousin to Uthman. And Muawiyah, one of his sisters, Habiba Ramla bint Abi Sufyan, is a wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And Muawiyah was also a secretary to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Sometime he was amongst the people who the Prophet will call for him to come and write wahi when the Almighty Allah reveals the verses. So you understand who Muawiyah is. So Muawiyah tells Uthman, "Ya Uthman, this is the situation that you are in. I have a sizable army with me in Sham. All I want you to do is just grant me permission. Let me send my soldiers to come and disperse this mob." And Uthman said, "No. This is Medina. You're going to bring your soldiers here onto the streets, and then you make the streets very difficult, tight and very difficult for the people. No. Forget about your soldiers. Okay, Amirul Mu'mineen. Then leave Medina and come to me for protection, because these guys, I'm not okay with them being around you there." He said, "You want me to leave Medina and go where?" But Medina, this is where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is. This is where we've lived our lives. Where am I going? I'm not going to go anywhere. So these people, Uthman bin Affan was able to let some of them come in. In some of the narration, he said he sent someone to them that, what are your allegations towards Uthman? They said, we have some few. Okay, tell us. They said the first one is that Uthman bin Affan has been embezzling funds. He is the head of state, but then he is embezzling funds. Uthman bin Affan embezzling funds. Number two, Uthman bin Affan is engaged in family and friends government. He only puts people who are closer to him in the government, meaning nepotism and favoritism. The third one, Uthman bin Affan is not upon the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. These young boys, small boys, who didn't even see the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, today they have the audacity to say Uthman is not upon the sunnah of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Okay, we've listened to you. Why do you say that? He said he's embezzling funds. We don't see where the funds are going. And then he told them, you know very well that I'm the richest man in the history of the Arabs. And I gave all my money for fi sabilillah. I am the one who expanded the Masjid when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam wanted it. I am the one who sponsored Jaysh al-Usra. We were going to war and there was no funds. I provided those funds. I am the one who bought that well, Bi'r Ruma. You know it very well. The only thing I own now are 2 camels. One of the camels, if I'm going for Hajj, I use it. The other camel, if it is time for jihad fi sabilillah, I go with it. I have a few clothes left. This is my life now. He was 83 years old now, or at that time. What am I going to do with money? They say, okay, we agree. You know, sometimes some people are so foolish and gullible that whatever they are being fed with, they just take it like that without really understanding the issues around it, without even thinking what is going on. So, okay, it is true. This is the guy who did all this in the time of Muhammad. And how is he going to embezzle funds? Okay, fine. Okay, we are okay with that. The second one, you are doing family and friends government. He said, which of my family members did I put into the government? They said, Abdullah ibn Sarh. Yes, he said, yes. And what happened to him now? I fired him. Even though he is a close relative to mine, and I gave him a position in government, when he didn't work the way we wanted, what happened? I fired him. So there's no nepotism, there's no favoritism. Are you guys okay with this one? They say, yes, we are okay with this one. Okay, the third one, I'm not on the sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. What happened? They said, yes, as for this one, we're going to get you on that. What is it? You went to Hajj, and in Mina, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Abu Bakr and Umar, they pray Zuhur 2 rakats, they pray Asr 2 rakats. You went and then you prayed 4. That is not how it is done in the Sunnah. He said, okay, no problem. Listen then. Do you know very well that at the beginning of my Khilafah, at Mina, I always pray 2. But then I changed. Why? Because 2 Arab Bedouins, one Hajj, they came to Uthman and then they were fighting. What was the reason? One of the guys, he came to Hajj the previous year, and then he saw Amir al-Mu'minin, Uthman bin Affan, the in-law of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, perform Zuhur 2 units, Asr 2. When he went back to his village, he always prayed Zuhur 2, Asr 2. 2 units. Why? He said, I saw Amir al-Mu'minin praying 2. So that's what I'm going to pray only 2 rakats. He didn't know that in Hajj at Mina, because you are visitors, you are allowed to shorten the prayer 2. And Uthman said, because of these kind of people who do not have deep understanding of the deen, I always pray 4, so that they don't think that Zuhur is 2 and Asr is 2. Are you guys okay with that? He said, yes. And let me give you another reason. I still have a family in Mecca. So when I go to Hajj, I am not a visitor. So I have to make up my salah 4. I said, okay, no problem. So they dispersed. They went away. They were okay. That the guy, they had almost 12 different accusations, but because of time, I cannot treat all of them. They left. They're okay, no, the guy didn't do anything. The guy is okay. Oh no, we were tricked, we were deceived. So they dispersed. But then the people who plotted this, they had a plan B. And the plan B was that they wrote fake letters. Because these people came from different places. Some of them came from Egypt. Some of them came from Syria. Some of them came from Iraq, Kufa. So they came, and then when they dispersed, these people who had plotted the whole thing wrote fake letters to send to the governors of these places in the name of Uthman, that these people, when they come back, kill them. And then they make sure that the wholeness of these letters will definitely pass where these people are going to, and then they will find them, and then they will have access to the letters, meaning that Uthman had what? Had betrayed them. And they wrote fake letters in the name of Aisha. They wrote fake letters in the name of Ali radiallahu anhu. So these people went through the path that these people were going to pass through, the holders of the letters, and then they got to them and opened. Oh, so Uthman betrayed us. After he had told us we are okay, we can go. After we are no longer interested in killing him, not knowing he is going to send a secret letter to our governors. When we go back to our provinces, we'll be killed. They all came back. And this time they held Medina. They hijacked Medina. They laid siege on Medina. And Ali radiallahu anhu was then in Medina. He didn't go to Hajj for that year. And then he came out with the sword of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and 500 other Sahabas. And these guys who had come were about 6,000 in number. What will 500 people do in front of 6,000 people? He came out with his sons, Hussein and Hussein and Abu Huraira and some of the Sahaba who were in Medina at that time. They went to Uthman and said, Uthman bin Affan, we will not tolerate this nonsense. Who are these small boys who will come and hold Medina, siege? Well, let's fight. He said, no. I don't want anybody to die because of me. They didn't come to hold Medina hostage. They came for me and me alone. If anybody must be killed or anybody must die, then it is me, Uthman, and nobody else. So it's okay. They held Medina for 9 days. And Ali bin Abi Talib, because of this fitna, for those 9 days he was in his house. He didn't come to the masjid to pray. And the guy called Al-Ghafiqi, he made himself the Imam of Medina, standing where the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam used to stand to lead prayer for 9 days. And on the day that Uthman was assassinated, that night, when he slept, he saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a dream, and the Prophet told him, Ya Uthman, come and break your fast with me. So Uthman that morning, he got up with a fast, because he seen the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam tell him, come and break your fast with me, and that's it. So in the morning, they just, broke down Uthman's door. They entered into his house. And this guy who was standing in front, where the Prophet used to stand to lead the prayer, stabbed Uthman 9 different times. He stabbed him. And then when he was asked, he said, I stabbed Uthman 9 different times. 3 of the stabs is because of Allah. You stabbed Uthman because of Allah. That is why you shouldn't be surprised that you have some people who put on the cloak of Islam and then they go about terrorizing people and destroying people. These are Khawarij. They have where they started. And the Prophet Muhammad predicted all this. He told the Sahaba about all these people. After stabbing him for 9 times, one of his wives, by name Na'ila bint al-Farafisa, she wanted to, block the stabs with her hands, and then her fingers were cut off. And then they cut his neck. They cut his throat. They cut him, and then they trampled upon the body. They left the body, and then they left Medina. That's all they wanted. He should leave the position or they kill him. And then they left Medina. When they left, Uthman was buried. His grave is in Baqi. If you go to Medina, there is a special place where you go. It is pointed, this is the grave of Uthman radiallahu anhu. When Uthman was assassinated, Aisha radiallahu anha said, when the people entered the house, after these people had left, they found Uthman dead, stabs, neck cut, his wife's fingers, a couple of them on the floor. And then the Quran that he had, compiled was with him. And then the first blood that they saw was on the verse, فَسَيَكْفِيكَهُمُ اللَّهُ. The Almighty Allah is enough for you against them. That is where his blood spilled, on that verse. The Almighty Allah is enough for you against them. So Uthman was buried, and the people came and then they knocked the door of Ali. Ali radiallahu anhu, you are going to be our Khalifa. He said, I don't want it. They said, yes. Even if you don't want it, there's nobody on the surface of the earth now who is more deserving to be the Khalifa than you, so you need to accept it. It's okay, no problem. But then he gave them conditions. Don't forget about Muawiyah, the guy we spoke about, whose sister was the wife of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And he told Uthman that, Uthman, come to me. So he is a governor in Syria, and then he told Ali, Uthman is my cousin. and I want recompense against the people who killed him. Ali said, fine. But then let's take our time for us to do serious investigation so that, one, we do not kill innocent people who are not involved in the whole thing. That's one. Number two, we don't know how powerful these people are and what their numbers are. If we go about looking for them to kill them or fight them, we might wake up a hornet next. We might open up something that we are not able to to control. So let's take our time to investigate. Muawiyah said, no, Ali, you are the leader, but I am not going to give you my allegiance until you either find the killers of Uthman and kill them, or you give me the chance to go kill them. So it became a back and forth between Muawiyah and Ali. And before that, after Ali had been made the Khalifa, Talha bin Ubaidillah, Zubair and Talha, who were amongst the 10 that the Prophet Muhammad had told them they will enter Jannah, they came to Ali and said, Ali, we want to go to Mecca. After they had given him bay'ah, they given him bay'ah, because some of the narrations which are weak say Talha and Zubair didn't give Ali bay'ah, they gave Ali bay'ah. And then they went to Mecca. At that time, Aisha was there. And Aisha had gone for Hajj, and then she had heard that Uthman had been assassinated. So she was like, no, we need to find the people who killed Uthman. So they formed, that is their mistake. They formed an army to go to Basra, where the original assassinators of Uthman were, to go and look for them and fight them and kill them. Ali was in Medina. He was like, no, these people, when they go, it's going to be a civil war between what? Muslims. I'm not going to allow that. So he also came out with an army, not to fight, but to find a way to what? To block these people from fighting. So they got to a place, they all camped, Ali's soldiers, and then, Talha and Aisha and their soldiers, they got to a place and then they camped. When they camped, they sent emissaries to discuss. Why are you here? He said, no, we are here to look for the killers of Uthman, to kill them. He said, no, but I'm the Amir al-Mu'mineen. I'm the one who has, the right to look for the ones who killed Uthman, to kill them. You people cannot do that. They say, yes, we agree. Okay, no problem. Then Aisha, you go back to Medina. And the rest of you will find a way to discuss this thing. So let's just go your way. The people who had plotted all this were not satisfied. So what they did was that right before dawn, they sent a group of people in this camp and a group of people in this camp, and they started attacking them. So Ali's group thought that Aisha's group had betrayed them, and Aisha's group thought that Ali's group had betrayed them, and then they entered into war. And Ali bin Abi Talib didn't join that war. And the bigger Sahaba amongst them were trying to quieten people down. No. We are not fighting each other. Stop this. This is not what is happening. But no. When fitna, erupts, you, the elder ones, you cannot control us, the younger ones. You can only control us when the fitna had not erupted. But the moment the fitna erupts, you can't control us. So they were not able to control them. That is where Talha was killed and Zubair was killed. And the one who killed Zubair came to Ali with his sword. He said, I have killed Zubair, or I've killed Talha. And he told him, the Prophet Muhammad told him that Abshir qatil ibn Safiyyah bin nar, that a man will come to you and then he will tell you he's the one who killed Zubair or Talha. I'm confused which of them. But tell him that I, the Prophet, told you to tell him he's going to enter Jahannam. So Ali went onto the battlefield after the battle has quietened down, and then he saw Talha, on the floor, killed. He wiped the sun off his beard, his face, crying. So why do I see you in this state? So afterwards, Aisha was sent back to Medina, and then Ali, because of these troubles, he didn't want, Medina to be, the center of chaos and confusion. He moved the capital from Medina and then he placed it in Kufa. Fast forward, Ali bin Abi Talib, these guys, later Ali bin Abi Talib had to fight a war with Muawiyah, because Muawiyah has now become almost like a rebel, because he's not accepting the ruling that Ali has made, that let's take our time in finding those who had killed Uthman. So he had to go fight him. And they fought a war, a civil war. Some of these things we don't say them publicly unless in a classroom setting because it's not beautiful. It's not nice. That the Sahaba of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who were always around the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in the end they had to go at each other's necks with swords. So Muawiyah and the Shia always, accuse and abuse Muawiyah that he challenged Ali because of the Khilafah. Muawiyah never challenged Ali because of the Khilafah. And he always said that Ali is better than me and Ali is more placed to be the Khalifa. My problem with Ali is that he has not found the assassinators of Uthman. That is my problem with him. So, at Ma'arakat Siffin, where they fought, in the heat of the battle, a group in Muawiyah's group said, okay, we've surrendered. We need to have, a negotiation. And there are some group in Ali who were Khawarij, hot-headed guys. They said, no negotiations. Let's finish them all. Said, no, we need to have, some form of hukum. They said, no, there is no hukum except the hukum of Allah. When Ali said, no, we're going to go through that hukum, they renegated from Ali's group and then they call Ali a kafir. And this group, they are the ones we call Khawarij. The ones who had rebelled. So later this group, they sent 3 people. One of them to go and kill Ali, one of them to kill Muawiyah, and one of them to kill Amr ibn As. Amr ibn As is also a Sahabi of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Subhanallah. These people, in Ramadan, they went to Mecca, in the Haram, near the Kaaba, and they said, these 3 guys are disturbing the Muslim Ummah. Let's do jihad by eliminating them so that the Muslim Ummah will be what? Will be at peace. Eliminating Ali and Muawiyah and Amr ibn As is jihad. So let's not be, deluded by people who shout jihad, jihad, jihad. In Haram, in Medina, in Mecca, in the Masjid. And then they agreed that let's do this on a Friday at Fajr. So they all left. Ali was in Kufa, Muawiyah was in Sham, and Amr ibn As was in Mafsal. And Ali bin Abi Talib, the Prophet told him that your death is going to be caused by a knife from this side of your neck to this side. The Prophet told him. So sometimes when they go to battles and Ali is hurt, and then the Sahaba were like, no, this is Ali is going to, he tells them, no, I'm not going to die. The Prophet told me my death is going to come from a sword from here to here. Until you see a knife pass from my neck to this neck, no, I'm not going to die. So that day, 17th Ramadan, Fajr, 40th Hijrah, Ali bin Abi Talib was assassinated. Abdurrahman bin Muljim killed him. The guy who was sent to kill Muawiyah was able to stab Muawiyah in the loins. And that caused Muawiyah to be impotent. After that, he couldn't give birth again. But Amr ibn As, he didn't come for Salah. So there was a guy called Kharija. He was in place and then he killed Kharija. And then when he killed him, he said, Allah Akbar, I've killed Amr. They told him, you are lying, you've not killed Amr. That is Kharija. He said, I wanted to kill Amr, but then the Almighty Allah rather wanted Kharija to die. He said, I wanted Amr, but the Almighty Allah wanted Kharija. So when Ali was stabbed, his sons Hassan and Hussein took him home and he told them, when I'm able to recover, I will deal with him personally. But then when I die, I leave his matter with you, my 2 sons. Deal with him the way you want. When Ali died, they tortured him and they wanted to cut his tongue. And then he said, please don't cut my tongue. I want to still continue to say La ilaha illallah. Yes. Killing Ali but you want to still have your tongue to say La ilaha illallah. So it is narrated that the 2 sons were the ones who went to bury their father and nobody knows where the qabr of Ali is. They are the only two who knew where the qabr of their father is. So you cannot point to a place today and say this is the qabr of Ali. It's not there. But you have other places where say this is the qabr of Ali, this is the qabr of Ali, this is the qabr of Ali. Let me give you an example. Kulthum and Zainab, 2 daughters of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They died in Medina when the Prophet was alive. And the Prophet buried them in Medina. But if you go to Cairo today in Egypt, there is the grave of Zainab there too. People have turned Islam into business. So after Ali had died, his son Hassan was made the Khalifa. And the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam had predicted this, that Khilafatul Nubuwah, Khilafah on the part of Nubuwah is going to be 30 years after me. So let's calculate this. Abu Bakr did 2.5 years. Umar did 10.5 years. That's how many years? 13. Uthman did 12.5 years. 12, 13, 25.5. Ali did 4.5 years, 29.5. And Hassan did 6 months. Exactly. Making it 30 years. 30 years. And Hassan, when all this chaos and confusion was going on, he sent Muawiyah a letter that, Muawiyah, I'm not interested in this. All this headache. You see the Khilafah? I've given it to you. Take it. I don't want it. Take it. And this thing that Hassan did was predicted by the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. One day the Prophet was on the minbar and Hassan came into the masjid and he tripped and then he fell. A 4 or 5 year old boy, and the Prophet came down from the minbar and then he took him and then he said, Innabni hadha la sayyid. This son of mine is a great leader. And then he is going to be the solution at a time where Muslims are in chaos and confusion. When Hassan abdicated and then gave the position to Muawiyah, Muawiyah was able to crush all the rebellion. And the Muslim Ummah came back again together as one community. And all these guys who were running around rebels, Muawiyah was able to crush them. Even though Muawiyah did not look for the killers of Uthman too. He fought Ali because Ali did not look for the killers of Uthman when he wanted. But then when he also got the power, he didn't look for the killers of Uthman. Meaning that Ali was more on the truth than he was. Because Ali was able to see things that he didn't see. Because Ali was concerned about the safety of the Ummah. If these people were able to hold Medina hostage for a number of days and they were able to come and kill Uthman, what shows that they cannot kill Ali too? What shows that? What shows that they cannot just be a rebel group going around the Muslim empire just killing innocent people? So to be able to save the situation, Ali said, no, let's take our time. Otherwise, we'll end up killing innocent people. And Muawiyah himself, when he became the Khalifa, he didn't look for the killers of Uthman. But then he was able to bring stability to the Muslim nation. Now Muawiyah, when he was going to die, before he died, he made his son Yazid the Khalifa. That is when the leadership of the Muslims, of us Muslims, turned from Shura to appointing sons as the next leaders. Muawiyah started it. So he named his son Yazid. And at that time, there were people better placed than Yazid to be the leaders of the community. Hussein was there. And let's not forget Hassan, the man who gave up his position. He is the first son of Ali bin Abi Talib. It is reported that he was poisoned. But then there's a weak narration that say it was his wife who poisoned him, but it is very weak. But then he was poisoned, and then when he goes to toilet, he sees blood. And some narrations said even some of his organs inside, the smaller ones, one of them came out because of the severity of the poison. But as to whether it was his wife that poisoned him, that statement is not substantiated. It's not. But then you see it in Sirah, in our history books. Now, Yazid takes over the position. And Yazid, there is this Shia paint Yazid as a very evil man, a fornicator, a drunkard, and all that stuff. But truth is that Yazid, there were people better placed to be the leaders of the community more than Yazid. There was Hussein, there was Abdullah ibn Umar, there was Ibn Abbas, there was Abdullah ibn Zubair. All these guys who were younger Sahaba, and some of them had seen the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Some of them, even though they didn't see the Prophet, their fathers were Sahaba, and then they were better placed than Yazid to be the leaders of the community. This is our position, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. But then again, it is also our Aqidah, Ahlul Sunnah, that when there is a leader, we don't revolt against the leader. We don't rebel against the leader, because rebellion causes a lot of tragedy and problems. I believe Libyans today will wish Muammar Gaddafi is still the leader. They will wish for it. Because, yes, we might call him a tyrant, but then they were living in peace. Iraqis will still want Saddam Hussein today. They want him because at least they are not dodging bullets. So revolt and rebellion and coup d'etats are not something that our Islamic Aqidah agrees or allows it. It's not. That is why the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said, if you are under your leader and then someone comes to break that, that unity, kill that person, whoever he is. So the had for rebellion and revolution in Islam is death penalty. Because you're going to cause people to be killed, innocent people. And this is what has happened in Iraq, in Libya, in Syria, that because you want to oust the leader, innocent people will be killed because the leader has supporters. They won't sit down and keep quiet. Yazid becomes the Khalifa. Some of the Sahaba or the younger ones, they didn't give him the allegiance. And someone like Hussein, he didn't give the allegiance. Then there is, Sayyidina Ali has another son called Muhammad al-Hanafiya. Some of the people went to Muhammad al-Hanafiya and they said, Yazid is a bad person. Yazid he's an alcoholic. Yazid this and that. And then Muhammad al-Hanafiya asked them that, are you guys really sure? They said, yes. He said, I have stayed with Yazid and I have not seen him do these things that you say he does. And they said, yes, because he's pretentious. He pretended. He said, okay, fine. If he pretended in my sight, what does he want from me that he's pretending? Or what is he scared about me that he's pretending? If he is able to expose those deeds of his with you, then it means you are his accomplices. You are his partners in that crime. But then, if what you are saying, you didn't see him do that, then you are bearing false witness. And Almighty Allah is going to judge you on that. So, this is the position of Ahlul Sunnah on Yazid. Yazid, we don't curse him. Yazid, we don't speak evil about him. And then we don't praise him. Of course, he's a human being. He is not a Sahabi. He's a Tabi'i. And then he doesn't have a isma. He doesn't have that natural, protection from the fact that he doesn't commit errors. He commits errors. We are not washing him clean, clearing him. No, that's not what we are doing as Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah. So Yazid becomes the leader. And then the people of Kufa, don't forget Kufa, those people that Ali was killed in their midst and they couldn't do anything, they sent Hussein 500 different letters that we don't want Yazid to be the leader. We want you, Hussein, because this thing must be from the family of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And then they sent him 500 different letters. At that time he was in Mecca. And he was preparing to leave, but he said, no, before I leave, I need to investigate all this stuff. So he sent his cousin, Muslim ibn Aqil. And Aqil is a brother to Sayyidina Ali from their father Abu Talib. So he sent Muslim, go and check the people of Kufa, what's going on. So Muslim went and then he was given, accommodation, and he was there. And then he had almost 12,000 people who came out to give him the bay'ah on behalf of what? On behalf of Hussein. That we agree Hussein is going to be our leader. At that time, there is a companion by name, I think, Nu'man ibn Bashir, who is a Sahabi of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who was also the governor of Kufa at that time. And he knew whatever was going on, but then he just turned a blind eye to it. Then one of his subordinates sent the message to Yazid that this is what is happening in Kufa, but your governor, Nu'man ibn Bashir, has taken his eyes away from it. He is not concerned. So Yazid, fired Nu'man ibn Bashir from the position, and then he brought Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad, who was also the governor of Basra. So he doubled up, made him the governor of Basra and Kufa at the same time, and then he sent him to Kufa to go and substantiate the whole issue. So he disguised himself, and then he came into Kufa, and then he went around asking what is going on. And the people were willing and waiting for for Hussein to come. So he realized that no, this is serious issue. Then he made them to arrest the guy who had given Muslim Ibn Aqil, lodge in what? In Kufa. And then he was taken to the castle. Then these 12,000 people all went out in protest that no, the guy should be released. Then he came out, and then some of the leaders were bribed, and some of them were threatened. So one person will leave after one person will leave after one person will leave after one person, and by the end of the day, all the 12,000 were all gone. Left with only Muslim Ibn Aqil. He couldn't do anything. So he left and went back into the city. And then a woman gave him lodge. And then they came and then they took him. They arrested him and took him into the castle. And then they said, we're going to kill you, but we're going to give you an opportunity to say something. Say, okay, I want to say something. And then he talked to one of the guys. He pulled him aside. He said, please send a letter to Hussein and tell him that these people, they have betrayed him. He shouldn't come. So this guy sent him, and this guy was killed. So he sent the letter, but then by the time the letter reaches Hussein had already moved. On the way, they sent Muhammad and Abdul Baydullah bin Ziyad sent an army to stop Hussein from what? From moving, from coming closer, because if he comes, he's going to what? He's going to turn the people against them. He got to a place called Qadisiyah, and later moved on to a place called Karbala, which is in present-day Iraq. He got there, and then the soldiers, and then he had only 72 people with him. You can see this is not a rebellion. 72 people. And this guy had about 6,000 people, army, fully armed. So they got to Karbala, and then they said, okay, we have been sent by Ubaydullah bin Ziyad to you, and that you are supposed to go back to Medina. Your cousin Muslim ibn Aqil has been killed, and so go back. But then the sons of Muslims said, no, we won't go back. We will have to go and revenge for our father. So Hussein said, okay, no problem, let's go. When they got there, he said, no, go back. He said, okay, no problem. I'm going to give you guys some options. Choose one. I'm either going to go back to Medina, or I'm going to go to Yazid. They said, okay, no problem. They went and then they told Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, the governor, that this is what Hussein has said. And one of the guys said, no, let him come and then kneel in front of you. The grandson of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, come and kneel in front of you. No problem. So now, he said, no, he's not going to do that. And he told them, if he refuses, fight him. So they went one after the other, those 70 or so people. Hussein didn't come out of his tent. And don't forget, he led them in Salah. The two groups, he led them in Salah, and after Salah, they started the fight. They killed him. They chopped off his head. They used their horses to kick his dead body. And they did all kinds of things. There were only a few survivors. One of them was one of his sons, Ali Zain al-Abidin, very young child at that time. He was one of the few survivors. And then when they chopped off their head, they took the head into the city to Ubaydullah bin Ziyad, and then he took his stick and then he hit his mouth with it. He said, this mouth. And then one of the sons of the companions was there. He said, Wallahi, you are lying. This mouth is better than you, because I saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam kiss these lips, because this is the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is how Hussein was killed. He was martyred. He was killed unjustly, and that is the position of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah on it. And this is how he was killed. And then he was buried in Karbala. But if you go to Iraq, if you go to Cairo today, there is a grave of Hussein in Cairo today. There is a grave of Hussein. So if you see, and this is the position that Shia have taken, that this day of, and he was killed on the 10th of Muharram, on the day of AASHURA. And this is the position that the Shia have taken, that this is a day of mourning, this is a day of crying, this is a day of cutting themselves and tearing their clothes and, wailing, because this is the day that the grandson of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was assassinated. So if you see anything like that in the media or stuff, this is the history from the time of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And all these things, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam predicted it. Abdullah ibn Abbas says that on the night before the day that Hussein was assassinated, he dreamt and then he saw the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam holding a jar with blood in it. And then he asked, Ya Rasulullah, what is it? He said, these are drops of the blood of Hussein, and I'm gathering them today. And then the following morning, Hussein was killed. The students of Abdullah ibn Abbas said, when Ibn Abbas narrated to us this dream of his, we realized that it was the day before Hussein was assassinated. And before Hussein left Mecca, these young Sahabi, Abdullah ibn Umar, Abdullah ibn Abbas, they told him, don't go. These people, we don't trust them, don't go. But he ended up going. So for us, Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah, this is a day for fasting. Not that we are happy that Hussein is assassinated or Hussein has been killed. No. The Prophet Muhammad died. We didn't hold his day of death as a day of mourning. Abu Bakr died. We didn't do that. Umar was also assassinated. Uthman was also assassinated. Ali himself was assassinated. But then the Ummah didn't hold those days that these great men were assassinated as a day of mourning. So we wouldn't hold the day that Hussein was killed as a day of mourning. But it's not something that we are happy about. And the leaders of Ahlul Sunnah and our scholars say that this is not something that for us to be peddling out there. And this is the trade of the Shia. They are interested in strategies and peddling out strategies and issues. We all did that. Khairan. And may Almighty Allah safeguard us. May Almighty Allah, protect us. May Almighty Allah grant. And Hussein, the Prophet Muhammad said, he and Hassan are the leaders of the youth in Jannah. So very, very, well-placed person, very religious person, of course, very knowledgeable person. And that's the position of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah on this whole issue. And that's the history. And, some of the history is very bloody, but then we have to make it, say it, but then we say it in a way that is going to be educative and then informative. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم. I think we have about some 10 more.